Lou Hamilton from Audible Elegance here in Cincinnati, Ohio. We are located on Montgomery Road, across the street from Montgomery Cyclery, and a few doors north of the original Montgomery Inn. We have parking in the rear of the building as well as a rear entrance. We also have some nice new landscaping out there, so you might enjoy that. Tonight I wanted to go into looking at one of my favorite amplifiers from days of yore. Proceed was a division of Madrigal, who produced the Mark Levinson line of amplification up in New England. A really fine company, wonderful people who were involved in it. And the Proceed product line, both their processors, the AVPs, which are now outdated. You know, the software has changed quite a bit for home theater. But they also produced a series of amplifiers. Some were known as the BPAs, and but they made a special series called the HPAs, which were nothing short of remarkable. I was able to do astounding things with these amplifiers in combination with Martin Logan speakers. Well, this one was brought to our attention as she'll turn on, and the right channel will come up just fine. The left channel, the minute it comes up, we get into a shutdown. The lid alone, I bet, probably weighs 6 or 7 pounds. So anytime you have a failed product, one of the first things I do is I look at the bottom side of the lid I just took off, because sometimes there'll be indications of what's gone wrong. Now, you'll also have the normal things from heat going on. So here we have heat in this area rising up and essentially layering in dust. So you can see I can hit it with my finger and it moves. We have similar up in these two areas. So we know that the center area here gets particularly hot. But there's nothing here on the lid that gives me an aha. This is where I need to look in the unit itself. So the first thing when you're looking at an amplifier and you're having a problem with one channel or another is you start going over the fuses. Let me grab my flashlight. Now, fuses typically are accessible on the back of the unit. They'll usually be one general power supply, but once you go inside, you'll begin to find a number of other fuses. It depends upon the set. So here we have several across here. You'll notice that these are white. The reason they're white is that they're ceramic. This was something that was began to be required by the European for avoidance of an instant flash, breaking the glass and there being a spark and causing a fire. This became kind of standard for a while. But every fuse in here was removed and checked. And that's one of the things you need to do with fuses is to take them out of the circuit and check them. Don't try to do it in there. You may get a false read. So we checked everything. Everything is fine. We looked every place else. We're looking for something that has burned. And again, there are no suspects. So we get to looking at the left channel, which is this guy here. And again, we start doing a visual inspection. Here you can see, actually in production, a modification. That doesn't bother me because it's the same in all boards. It's something that they probably found is better. Here's another adaptation here. Again, doesn't bother me at all. But as I look across this, and I'm following along with what we discussed on the lightning struck Martin Logan, is I begin to see when I'm shining my flashlight down, this cap in particular is beginning to bulge. It's not split, but the top is beginning to bulge. And we're talking a 20-some-year-old amplifier. I think this was from 2002. Some of them were from 1999. And the reason I want to point this out in terms of failure is a lot of people talk about recapping receivers or recapping this and recapping that. And what they're talking about are the main power supply caps. And they're not looking at these. And these actually have, probably a shorter shelf life than the big boys. And so, recapping any product is not only the main power supply caps, but all of these guys. And we've got these cans here. We've got the WEMA caps sitting there. And I've never seen WEMAs go bad, but there we are. So this is a suspect cap. We have no transistor showing any sign of damage. She's clean. When I look at the right channel, I don't see any of that sort of bulging, but I know we're dealing with something of the same age. This is where it begins to get interesting. So it's, that'll be easy. All you got to do is replace the cap. Well, if you look at it, you begin to see that the entire assembly has all of these transistors soldered to the board. And underneath these transistors is a heatsink compound. So in order to get to the board to do repair, and this is a single board, you have to release it, and you have to take off all the screws going to the heatsink to release it. Then you get back here, you're going to have to loosen the nuts so that the wire can come off so you can do your work. So this starts to become labor intensive. Heatsink compound, if not done properly, will result in the destruction of the transistor because it needs to transfer heat to the heatsink itself, which is no small piece of work in its own. So that you actually start getting into quite a bit of work before you even can begin to service the board. One of the other things I look at is I look at resistors, looking for anything that may have show signs of burn or stress. Again, the board comes up clean. So when you go into a service shop and you've taken a nice product, and they come back at you with a fairly extensive quote for service, keep in mind that they may be familiar with the amount of work that it's going to take to get into this thing and go over everything, make sure it's right. And as I said, we know we have a bad left channel, but we also know the right's probably going to follow suit. It's just of that age. So, repairing some of these things can be ghastly. This is not an easy one to take apart. It'll keep you busy, as I say. And no, I'm not going to take it apart for a video and do service on that board to find out whether it's just that one cap, because it's just a lot of work. And as some of you know, I'm dealing with a wife who has substantial medical problems. I'm far more interested in taking care of her than trying to figure out if a cap is bad. It's just So I just wanted to give you kind of an overview of looking at any piece of equipment that has failed. If you don't see anything really physically wrong, then someone with knowledge and the schematics is going to have to set about going and checking the circuitry to find out what's going on. There are test points on many boards so they can actually measure what is going on electrically to see whether it's within spec or not. Well, there we are. It's a shame to see this one in the shape that it is. We haven't decided its fate yet. That's one of those things that's kind of thinking about it, but what a wonderful product. The Proceed HPA amplifiers were a truly remarkable product and well performing past its price in their day. Well, that's what we've got. I wanted to give you an idea of what to kind of look for. Again, we have an exploding cap, but all the caps, if you're going to go in it, all this labor, you might also replace the whole shooting match. Otherwise, you're just asking for another one to go cooking on you. And that's it. There we are.